So you guys both have a pretty good view of the market. You've both got a lot on, and two are probably the most active, well-known development companies in New South Wales. What are you seeing this year, and what do you think we're in for?
You go first. Let's start down this end.
Thanks for having us. Great to see some familiar faces here. So, look, December was a strong month for us. January was very, very good leads-wise, which has flowed through into a really good February with deposits and exchanges. So we're pretty positive. We know with the lack of supply in the market that prices will continue to climb. So we're looking forward to new releases and also continuing with the projects that we currently have. So overall, it's been quite positive for us.
For us, similar to everyone else, we've got a lot of different product coming to market in 2025 across the country. Everything from a $300,000 block of land in WA through to a $550,000 townhome in Victoria to a $20 million something in Darling Harbour, and a number of new launches this year. I think the two sort of drivers that we're watching this year and that we're constantly hearing about and that will have the biggest impact on how we go are probably sentiment. The interest rate cut yesterday definitely helped with that, but there's a long way to go. And affordability, which remains such a key driver of what's going to happen in 2025.
It makes sense. And obviously we heard from the project marketers, I think there's so much insight to be gained from what's happening down in the display suites where customers are talking to agents and gathering that stuff. You guys also have that opportunity to speak to your sales teams. What are some of the things that you're hearing in 2025?
So I think what I'm hearing from my teams are around sentiment, as I mentioned. I think people's feelings about whether now is the right time to buy is really important. We deal with a lot of downsizers, and I always say our biggest competitor is actually inertia. If you're selling your current home, what is the motivation? What's special enough to make you make that move now when you know what you're going to get for it on the market and how long it's going to take to sell? I think Harbourside was a very good example of bringing something so special to market that we activated a whole bunch of downsizers that weren't initially thinking about moving, but they recognised a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity brought by an amazing developer that kind of pushed them into action, whereas otherwise they might have waited a few years. So sentiment's big, affordability, I think developer brand and certainty around delivery timeframes is really important as well. Price, location, all the usual suspects.
For us, it's listening to what people are looking for, and it's not only the block of apartments you're building, it's the amenity that surrounds it and what you can provide the end user with. So that involves a strategic retail mix, it involves good amenity. So we're really in tune with that, and that's essentially what we're hearing. I think that the sentiment is quite good. I think the interest rate reduction, a lot of people have already baked that into their calculations already, and probably not much more. That's what we're hearing on our side, and the focus on the credentials of the developer are really, really important, and the longevity of the team is really something that people are almost quite surgical in investigating.
Agreed.
Obviously, I speak to tons of developers and project marketers and things across the country, and I think something in Sydney that you shouldn't take for granted is that kind of gap between the established market and the off-the-plan market is much smaller. In Melbourne, I was just having a conversation over here with some of the guys at Fortis about the equation for a Melbourne buyer is they've got for this in particular in the downsizer market, is they've got a 600 square metre property in a blue chip suburb with 4 or 5 bedrooms, and that property's worth $5 million, and they've banked their whole lives on having a gap to move into an apartment, and their 3-bedroom apartment that they're looking at costs them $4.3 million. And unfortunately, the 700 isn't enough to kind of retire on. And so we have this problem of this inertia, as you say, where people kind of aren't prepared to make the sale, make the move, because they're not going to have enough change left over to kind of fund the type of lifestyle they have. And thankfully, it's not as bad in New South Wales, but I do think that the bigger that gap gets, the better it's going to be. And so what do you think outside of that'll trigger higher sell-through rates, and what impact the interest rates we've had, and what more do we need?
Firstly, your buyer that's downsizing from 5 million, we definitely have something for them. Interest rates, I think we all know in this room that interest rate sensitivity sort of hits different buyer groups differently and different price points. So if you're the average household, like you're spending half your income on your mortgage at the moment, which realistically that needs to come down a lot to make a difference in sales volumes. So we ideally would want to see another 2, 3 or 4 interest rate cuts to really make a dent in the sales volumes, especially when we're talking about house and land and the more affordable stock. But yeah, like as others have mentioned, anything is going to help. It's the train that's left the station. Let's hope it's a bullet train, not a rattler. Yeah.
I think people are still concentrating on location, which is vitally important, and I think that the market sentiment is quite good, but the reports that we're seeing where there's a shortage of stock is really important. And what that means is that people realise that prices are going to continue to go up, and that will slowly start bringing the investors coming in. And when the investors come in, it's just going to take off, and that's aided again by any reduction in interest rates.
And so I guess before that happens, people that are kind of sort of looking, and as we heard earlier, there are timeframes to purchase are blowing out. What are you guys thinking in terms of how do you kind of bring those people forward when they have the inertia you're talking about?
Mirvac does a couple of things really well. I think one, they only play in markets that are very resilient to downturns. I think when you get a softer market, you generally get a flight to quality, and Mirvac are really known for being the best quality in any market that they play in, so they do that really well. They don't kind of chase these fast rising star markets. The other thing that we have that's quite lucky and unique is our previous purchaser database and our loyalty program. We typically sell 30% of our pre-sales to our previous purchaser database. At Harbourside, that was 40%. That really shocked everyone. It was pretty amazing. It's definitely not something we take for granted, but what I would say is that that's something that's not unique to Mirvac. Any company, any developer can build up that loyalty, and if they have the right strategy to capitalise on that, that becomes its own little well of demand. So I'd really encourage everyone to do that.
I'd like to say simply ditto. We're encouraged by any launch. On average, 25% of our buyers are either previous purchases or referrals from those purchases. So to enter into a marketing campaign knowing that you're going to have that head start is fantastic. And on top of that, we focus on, again, quality of the product, quality of the developer, and it just resonates with those buyers that are out. And you see, and I look at the CRM on a daily basis, and you look at buyers that come in and out. Someone could be sitting there for 6 months, has inquired a couple of times, responded to a nurture sequence, and then something just clicks. Like, I'm not saying it because we're here, but an urban ad that they click on, and then they come into the office, and you ask them, what was it that made you respond? Because we've been with you for so long, and it's just having a third-party endorsement that also works, that is coming almost left of field where they're not used to. So treating everyone well and with respect, because understanding that these people who are investing with us, whether it be a $1 million 1-bedroom, $2 million 2-bedroom, hard-earned dollars that we have to be responsible for. So there is an enormous responsibility on a developer to produce the best product they can.
A lot of people in this room know that brand is a hell of a lot more than the logo. It's kind of what you do and do what you say you're going to do over a long period of time, and it takes a bloody long time to build brand and takes a very short time to kill it. And you guys are both in the luxury position of working with organisations that have built brand and done what they said they're going to do for a long period of time. How do you kind of maximise on that and be able to integrate that into your strategy when it's such a big competitive advantage for both of you guys?
Well, we try and capitalise on it at every point. I drill into the sales team that we have to focus on our history, on the quality of the product, the fact that we've completed every single project we've started, and the added benefit is that we can take people to one of our projects that's recently completed and just let them walk through without even saying anything, and that speaks volumes.
Yeah, very similar. We like to obviously leverage the brand as much as we can, every touch point, every part of the customer journey. We'd be crazy not to. We surveyed our customers recently. We survey them every 2 years, our whole database. And developer brand was ranked as the number one type of information our leads and customers look for when they go on their property buying journey, which was quite interesting but not surprising. We've still got local agents that reference the Mirvac brand on 40-year-old projects they're selling. So it's definitely something in terms of quality of construction in particular that people are looking for. So, yeah.
I don't know if we told you guys this, Mirvac was the most viewed industry page on our website for the whole of 2024. And I think that kind of goes to show like a lot of people care about it. And I think particularly the Mirvac audience are really kind of brand focused, I would say. And I think that's just like such a big advantage for you guys. And then in the same kind of light from a brand point of view, how do you think having sales and marketing in-house, because there are kind of advantages and disadvantages of having external versus internal. How do you maximise on the advantages of having that capability internally?
Yeah. I see a lot of ownership with the team that works on a project, and so it's like their little baby from day dot, and they're all responsible for it. The entire team likes to raise this child and wants to do a good job. Having a fully integrated business like ours definitely helps with the customer at the end of the day. So it's definitely a real asset.
Completely agree. I think fully integrated right from sales, marketing, customer relations, design, construction, development, you got to create a closed loop where you can iterate and just get better and better each time. So stuff that the customer's telling you right at the front end makes its way through the circle to design. You design out any of those issues, feed it back through construction, construct out any of those issues, post-completion, feedback those insights and kind of start the cycle again. So it's a very closed loop, but I guess within that comes a bit of a risk that you look very inwardly as well, so which is why external sales and marketing teams work really well as well.
And I guess I asked the external guys about what do you do if a project's not working that well for whatever reason? What are some of the steps that you've taken in the past with some of the ones that have been a bit trickier?
Yeah, everyone gets tricky projects. I think you can measure everything at the moment. We're drowning in data, and I've gotten caught in that trap many a time where you're chasing these like wild data geese around trying to find these silver bullets that are going to solve your problems. But ultimately, I think another of the panelists mentioned it before, you want to measure what matters. And for me, you're looking like the things that really matter over deposits. You're looking at market share, like you might be selling 5, but your neighbour's selling 50. Why is that? What have you got wrong? People that actually come into a sales office over leads and have a face-to-face conversation, much better indicator of what's going to translate into sales. Repeat rate, how many of your repeat purchases are coming back and why? And then, of course, your voice of customer that's coming through both anecdotal conversations with your sales team, but as well as your voice of customer program. Once you have all that, you can kind of figure out what's going wrong in the funnel and tweak as appropriate and as nuanced to that project.
For me, you only get to sell them once. So it's really important to not sort of dance around the edges, but just change things from a marketing perspective, because having a fresh look and feel of a project really works. And it's also going into the data and seeing, there were periods where we were selling. What were we doing right there? Who's the buyer that came through? What resonated with them? And trying to repeat that again. So, yeah, drowning in the data, I'd love not to, but you do find yourself in that. And it's really important just kicking the dirt and getting there at the sales suites and just watching people and understanding what they're looking for, what their intentions are, and trying to tweak your message accordingly.
Cool. And what's your kind of tip or thoughts just on the year, or any other kind of final thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, to your point, you can't develop and you can't sell or market from behind a desk, or you can do part of it from behind a desk, but go out and see what everyone else is doing. Make sure you don't get stuck looking at your own navel. People are doing some amazing things out there. So yeah, just get out and talk to people and see what's happening in your market.
For us, it's just keep on producing quality with quality people. It's really important. Having a good team that are responsible for the project, and you give them ownership and you get the product in the end.
Thanks very much to both of you guys.
Thank you.
Awesome.